He left his debit card on the counter after quietly paying for a frail old woman's medicine, then hurried off before she could even catch his name. 1 hour later. "Sir, I'm sorry, this card isn't going through." "That's impossible. Try it again." The reader beeped, declined. The waitress gave him an uneasy, apologetic look. "I'm really sorry. Do you have a backup card?" Nathaniel patted down his jacket. His face fell. "No, I don't." The small restaurant went completely still. Then from somewhere behind him, a soft voice broke the silence. "I've got this one." He turned around. A young woman had stepped up, set her own card on the counter, and offered a small, easy smile. "It's just breakfast." "You don't know me at all." "I don't need to." Before he could even get out a thank you, she had already turned and walked back to her seat. He never caught her name, yet somehow he already knew. He wasn't going to let her disappear. 1 hour before that, Nathaniel Cross had 11 minutes to spare before the biggest board meeting of the year. His driver was idling outside. His assistant had already called him twice. Every minute counted. He should have gone straight to the car. Instead, something pulled his attention toward an elderly woman standing alone at the pharmacy counter. She looked to be well into her 70s, her fingers shaking as she counted out a small pile of wrinkled bills and loose change. The pharmacist gave her a pitying smile. "I'm sorry, ma'am. You're $4 short." The woman's shoulders sank. "That's all right. I'll come back when I've got enough." She reached to slide the bag back across the counter, trying not to let her disappointment show. Nathaniel stepped in. "Please, don't put that away." Both of them turned toward him. He laid his card down on the counter. "Whatever she needs, put it all on this." The pharmacist blinked in surprise. "Sir, are you certain?" Nathaniel nodded. "And if there's anything else she could use this week, add that too." The old woman's eyes welled up. "Young man, I really can't let you do this." Nathaniel smiled softly. "You're not asking me to. I'm choosing to." Before she could respond, his phone started buzzing. His assistant, reminding him about the meeting. He answered while already moving toward the exit. "I'll be there in 10. He rushed out without a second thought, completely unaware that his card was still sitting right there on the counter. By the time Nathaniel walked into the boardroom, every chair around the long mahogany table was filled. A dozen faces turned his way, some tense, some clearly relieved to see him. His assistant slid a folder in front of him without a word. "They've been waiting." He gave a short nod. "Let's get started." For nearly 2 hours, the room echoed with spreadsheets, projections, and heated back and forth. One board member pushed to cut the community outreach budget to boost margins. Another wanted to hold off on expansion until next year. Voices climbed with every passing minute. Nathaniel said nothing, just listened. Once everyone had said their piece, he finally spoke. "If chasing profit means abandoning the people who helped us get here," he said evenly, "then we're chasing the wrong version of success." Silence settled over the room. No one pushed back after that. The vote passed unanimously. As the directors packed up their papers, one leaned over with a smile. "I don't know how you do it, Nathaniel. You make the toughest calls look effortless." He smiled back. "They're never effortless, just necessary." Minutes later, he stepped outside, tie loosened, and slid into the car his driver held open. "Back to the office, sir?" Nathaniel stared out the window, then shook his head. "No, I need coffee and somewhere quiet." His driver nodded and pulled away from the financial district, neither of them realizing the card from the pharmacy was still sitting untouched on that counter. A short drive later, the car stopped outside a modest neighborhood diner. Nathaniel thanked his driver, got out alone, and pushed through the front door as a small bell chimed above him. He scanned the quiet space before settling onto a stool at the counter, simple, unhurried, exactly the kind of place he escaped to when he needed to step away from the corporate noise for a while. "Just black coffee, please," he said. He exhaled slowly as the cashier got to work. The meeting was finally behind him, and for the first time all morning, his thoughts began to settle. Moments later, a steaming mug landed in front of him. "That'll be $4. Without thinking twice, he pulled a card from his wallet and handed it over. She swiped it. A beep. Declined. Nathaniel frowned. That can't be right. The cashier tried again. Another beep, another decline. He took the card back and actually looked at it this time. A quiet laugh escaped him. Oh, this is my old card. It expired ages ago. He tucked it away and dug for his current one. His smile faded fast. One pocket, then another, nothing. That's when it clicked. He'd left his real card behind at the pharmacy. The cashier looked at him kindly. Any other cards, sir? He shook his head. Afraid not. For a beat, the whole diner seemed to hold its breath. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I genuinely don't know how this happened. Before the cashier could reply, a calm voice spoke up from behind him. I'll cover his breakfast. He turned to see a young schoolteacher, red pen still in hand from grading papers, walking over with an easy smile. She set her card down. It's only breakfast. You don't even know me, he said. She just smiled. I don't have to. The cashier finished the transaction and handed him his receipt. The woman picked up her bag and returned quietly to her booth. Nathaniel stood frozen for a second, watching her go. Something about it wouldn't let him just walk away. He picked up his coffee and crossed the room toward her table, stopping beside the empty chair. May I? She glanced up from her stack of spelling tests, a faint smile forming. Depends. On? She capped her pen. Are you about to spend 10 minutes trying to pay me back? He laughed under his breath. No. Actually, I was hoping you'd answer one question. She set the papers aside. Go ahead. Why'd you help me? You had no idea who I was, no idea if I deserved it. She shrugged. I knew enough. He looked puzzled. You looked embarrassed, and you were working hard to hide it. I've seen that look before. You have? She nodded. Second grade teacher. Kids put on brave faces constantly. You learn to notice what people don't say out loud. Her answer caught him off guard. He studied her for a moment, then smiled. I think I owe you an explanation. You don't owe me anything. I know, I'd still like to give you one. He wrapped his hands around the warm cup. This morning, I stopped at a pharmacy. An elderly woman couldn't cover her medication. I paid for it and rushed off to a meeting. He shook his head with a small laugh. I was in such a hurry, I left my card sitting right there. She smiled. So that explains the confused look. I kept wondering how a $4 coffee turned into the most complicated purchase of my week. That got a real laugh out of her, which pulled one out of him too. For the first time all day, neither of them was thinking about meetings, declined cards, or anything waiting outside. I'm Amelia, she said, offering her hand. Amelia Hart. He shook it warmly. Nathaniel Cross. Neither of them knew it yet, but a $4 breakfast had just become the opening line of a story they'd never forget. Over the next 3 days, Nathaniel told himself the coffee was the reason that diner kept crossing his mind. It wasn't, and he knew it. On the fourth afternoon, his driver caught his eye in the mirror. Office, sir? Nathaniel looked out the window, then smiled. No, the diner, his driver chuckled. Figured you'd say that. 20 minutes later, he stepped inside, eyes searching the room until he found her. Same booth by the window, another stack of tests spread in front of her. She looked up as the bell rang. Her face lit up. You came back. I was hoping the coffee was as good as I remembered. She laughed. You're giving the coffee way too much credit. Probably. He walked over. May I? She nodded toward the chair. I was wondering how long it'd take you. He raised an eyebrow. You expected this? Not exactly, but you looked like a man with more questions. He laughed as he sat. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals, spoken to rooms of thousands of people. Somehow walking over to this table made me more nervous than any of that. Good, she said. That means you're being honest. The waitress brought his coffee without asking. The usual, he nodded, thanking her. Amelia noticed. You're already a regular. I don't think that's a bad thing. For the next hour, they talked about everything except work. The classroom wins, a kid who finally learned to read, a girl who split her lunch with a classmate every single day, a boy who dreamed of space even though he'd never left the block. Nathaniel mostly listened. There was something about how she saw the world that made his own feel a little lighter. For the first time in a long while, he found himself wishing the afternoon wouldn't end. Over the following 2 weeks, that little diner quietly wove itself into his routine. Some days 20 minutes, some days an hour, neither of them noticing how naturally those visits had become the best part of their week. One Tuesday morning, Amelia was straightening books on a shelf when the principal appeared in her doorway, beaming. There you are. We've got a very special guest coming this afternoon. Who? The businessman who's been funding our lunch program and covering fees for so many of our students. Her eyes widened. The anonymous donor? He's finally agreed to visit in person. I want the whole staff in the assembly hall right after lunch. Don't be late. The school buzzed with excitement the rest of the morning. Kids rehearsing welcome songs, teachers taping up handmade banners. By early afternoon, the assembly hall was packed. Amelia stood near the back, smiling as her students whispered excitedly. The principal took the stage. It's my honor to welcome the man whose generosity has quietly transformed so many lives in this building. Please welcome Mr. Nathaniel Cross. Amelia's stomach dropped. She watched him walk out to applause, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found hers. For one long second, they just smiled at each other. Once the clapping died down, he came down to greet the staff, stopping in front of her. She leaned in, laughing softly. You're the billionaire? He smiled almost sheepishly. Guilty. She shook her head, laughing under her breath. Never saw that coming. I wanted you to get to know me first. She looked at him. I'm glad I did. For the rest of the afternoon, Amelia watched him sit cross-legged on the floor with her students, reading stories, answering their questions, laughing like he had nowhere else in the world to be. It wasn't the wealth that impressed her. It was how naturally he treated every single child like they mattered. And in that moment, she finally understood why helping a stranger had come so easily to him. He didn't leave right after. While the principal chatted with guests, he wandered the halls, admiring the kids' artwork pinned along the walls. Amelia caught up with him. Didn't know you were such a fan of school visits. I'm not. She looked surprised. You're not? I'm a fan of this school. She laughed softly. My students are going to be talking about you for weeks. They're incredible kids. They just need someone in their corner. He nodded. That's exactly why I started doing this. What made you start? For a moment, he went quiet. When I was a kid, there was a teacher who wouldn't let me give up on myself. My father was always buried in work building the company. I lost my mother young. He smiled faintly, but that teacher kept telling me I could be more than people expected. I never forgot it. So once I had the means, I promised myself I'd give other kids that same shot. Her eyes softened. I think she'd be proud of you. I hope so. Just then a little boy ran up. Miss Hart, my shoe broke again. Amelia knelt down immediately. Let me see. The sole had nearly split off entirely. The boy looked mortified. Sorry. I tried to be careful. She squeezed his shoulder gently. Nothing to apologize for. We'll sort it out. He ran back to his friends. Nathaniel had watched the whole thing without a word. That evening in the car, he couldn't stop thinking about that boy's shoe. The next morning, before the first bell, a stack of boxes arrived at the principal's office, brand new shoes in every size, enough for any child who needed them. No note, no logo, no cameras, just a single small card. Every child deserves to walk into class with confidence. When the principal showed her the card, Amelia already knew exactly who'd sent them. Some people measure wealth in numbers. Nathaniel Cross measured his in quiet moments like this one. A few days later, Amelia found a small envelope on her desk. Inside, a handwritten note. Would you have dinner with me? No speeches, no business. Just two people getting to know each other. Nathaniel. She smiled to herself. That evening, instead of driving her to some five-star rooftop, he took her to a quiet park overlooking a still lake, where a simple picnic waited under an old oak tree. She laughed. I thought billionaires were supposed to impress people with private chefs. I've learned the best conversations don't need fancy backdrops. They talked for hours as the sun dipped behind the trees. She told him stories from her classroom. He told her about the sleepless nights and setbacks that built his company. For the first time in years, he talked about his life without a single question about profit or investors. As the stars came out, they walked slowly along the water, in no hurry to end the night. He finally broke the quiet. Can I tell you something? Of course. He looked out over the lake. The morning I lost my card, I thought I'd lost something small. Turns out I found something far more valuable. What's that? Proof that kindness is still out there, that people still help strangers, expecting nothing back. He turned to face her. And that one small act can change someone's entire life. She looked at him for a long moment. I almost didn't pay for that breakfast, you know. He looked startled. You didn't want to? I'd had an exhausting week. Part of me thought someone else would step up. She smiled softly. Then I remembered something my father always told me. If you get the chance to be someone's answered prayer, don't walk away from it. His eyes filled with something like awe. I'm glad you listened to him. She reached over and took his hand. So am I. Neither of them said it out loud that night, but they both felt something had shifted for good. Weeks later, the school gym overflowed with laughter. Parents, teachers, and kids gathered to celebrate the grand opening of a brand new learning center, funded entirely by the Nathaniel Cross Foundation. No banners with his name, no long speeches about generosity, just kids buzzing over their new library, computers, and classrooms. Amelia stood beside him as the ribbon was cut, looking out at the joy around them. You've changed so many lives, he smiled. They changed mine first. What do you mean? He laughed quietly. If I hadn't left my card at that pharmacy, I never would have walked into that diner. If I hadn't walked into that diner, I never would have met the woman who reminded me what real kindness looks like. She laughed. I just bought you breakfast. No, he said, shaking his head. You reminded me generosity isn't about how much you give. It's about the love behind it. For a moment, neither spoke, just letting the children's laughter fill the room around them. Then he turned to her, his voice steady but full of feeling. I've built companies, hit goals I once thought were out of reach, but none of it means as much as what we've built together. He took both her hands in his. Amelia, I want to spend the rest of my life beside you, making sure no kid in your classroom ever has to sit in class hungry again. Tears welled in her eyes as she smiled through them. I'd like that very much. She laced her fingers through his. No ring, no grand gesture, just two people who'd discovered that the biggest love stories often start with the smallest acts of kindness. As they walked through the school together, children ran past them laughing, their voices echoing down the hallway. A reminder that kindness has a way of multiplying. One forgotten card, one $4 breakfast, one decision to help a stranger, and two lives changed forever. Before you go, I'd genuinely love to know what you think. Do you believe a single small act of kindness can change someone's life, or maybe even spark a lifetime of love? If you were in Amelia's shoes, would you have covered a total stranger's breakfast without knowing a thing about them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone, and I'd love to hear your take. And if this story moved you even a little, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and pass it along to someone who still believes kindness can change the world. Looking for more heartwarming billionaire romance stories? I've pulled together a collection of 5 more that viewers have really connected with. You'll find the link down in the description.